Apple phones are really expensive. Well, yes, if you buy straight up from Apple, but today I'll be showing you all the options if you really want an iPhone. Reviewing every single iPhone to find out this is the best for you. If you're new to the channel, I post Tech and Aviation content thrice a week. If you're interested, please be sure to hit the subscribe and ring the notification bell. Okay, so let's start off with the latest and greatest phone by Apple. So we have the iPhone 11 Pro Max and iPhone 11 Pro here, and we'll slowly go down the list. Anyway, back to the iPhone 11 Pro and Pro Max. The iPhone 11 Pro Max can be bought at $1,100 or $1,100, and the iPhone 11 Pro can be purchased at $999. So the price is really high if you're really getting a phone, but you're getting all the latest specifications and chipset from Apple. You have the A13 Bionic chip, and to be honest, this is a great phone. I mean, it is the best that Apple has to offer now, but again, this is really expensive for a phone. If budget isn't a concern for you and you want a phone with the best specifications and features, this is the phone for you. One good thing about this phone is that it supports fast charging, and Apple is kind enough to provide that in the box this time. So yes, this is a great phone and you should get it if the price isn't a concern for you. Base model is $999 for the Pro and $1,099 for the Pro Max. The Pro Max is just a larger variant. Okay, let's move on to the iPhone 11. This is Apple's mid-range phone. So you're losing a bit of specs compared to the Pro Max, but you can get this phone at $699, which, to be honest, is quite expensive compared to other alternatives. But for Apple, it's considered one of their cheaper phones. But good news is that you can find it new or refurbished on eBay. It goes for around $600 and all the way down to $550 for refurbished ones. And if you don't mind your phone being lightly used, go for the refurbished. It's a much better deal. Personally, I like to buy phones refurbished because it's better value for money. But for the iPhone 11, you are getting most of the things that you can get on the iPhone 11 Pro Max. You are missing out one camera, which is the ultra wide, but that is something that you will not be using very often. So to be honest, I'll say this phone is a good buy, especially when you buy it refurbished. Okay, next we'll look at Apple's budget phone, the iPhone SE 2020. And first impressions, it feels like you're using an iPhone 8. Actually, I don't have one with me now, but my cousin has it and I tried. It is just like the iPhone 11 Pro Max. It is really fast and snappy, and I would say it's a good buy, but bear in mind you're getting a much smaller screen that looks like the iPhone 6 from 2014. But specification wise, you're getting the Apple A13 Bionic chip, which is the latest, and the camera, it is just like the iPhone 8, but you're not getting any ultra wide or night mode, but it still can shoot in 4K and it's still 12 megapixels, no big complaints here. Also, so you're not missing out much except for the really small screen, which some people like it. If you like it, get this phone. It's a really good buy. But if you're someone that likes a larger screen and something that looks more modern, go for the iPhone XR or XR. But before we look at the iPhone XR, let's look at the XS Max and XS. So this phone is no longer sold by Apple, but you can find it on eBay or Amazon for a rather expensive price, I would say. You can get this phone, the XS Max, at $800 to $1,000, which is not really cheap. You can get the XS at $600, which is still a good deal, but those that I saw have some minor scuffs, and it's not really a problem. But I mean, most people here would want it brand new if they're paying such a big amount of money. Anyways, this phone is still a really good phone. If you can get this phone for under $500, even if it's damaged moderately, it is still a good buy. I would say this phone, actually I'm using one of it right now, and the XS Max is really fast. It's really snappy as Apple's A12 Bionic chip, which is very revolutionary. In fact, this phone feels quite like using an iPhone 11, I'll be honest. So now let's look at the XR, because this is a much better buy than the XS. So this phone has a slightly lower resolution display, but not much to complain here. I mean, when you're using the phone, you can't even tell the difference. This phone is probably the best value phone I would say right now. So this XR has a rather revolutionary look with the Apple notch, Apple's iconic notch, and you can get it new from Apple at $599. But if you look hard enough, you can find it for $400 to $450 refurbished, which is a steal. I will get one of it soon, because the XR is really a great phone. You have Apple's A12 Bionic chip, just like the more expensive counterpart, the XS and XS Max, and you're not missing out much. In fact, there's a much more better color variant. I really love the coral one and the blue color one, so as the black color one. Okay, I love most of the colors on the XR. It looks really good, and I would argue this is the best phone you can get for $500 if you buy it refurbished, because this phone is just a bit underrated because it only has one camera at the back. But this one camera at the back is still very powerful. It is 12 megapixel and can shoot in 4K. It is a wide lens and there's nothing to complain about. I mean, this is Apple's best seller. Okay, so enough of this, let's go to the iPhone X. So this is a 2017 phone, same time as the release of the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus. This phone is a bit older and it has Apple's A11 Bionic chip, which is still very snappy. It doesn't feel much different from the iPhone 11, to be honest. I would say this phone is aged quite a bit and it's not so worth buying it today, because you cannot buy new from Apple, and if you find refurbished one, they're still going for about $600 to $650. And I would rather you buy the iPhone XR, cause that's a better phone for the money. Yes, you're getting a dual camera, but I would prefer the XR. You get a better chipset and overall better value for money. But you can find this at a good deal, like around $400. I would say go for it. Now let's look at the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus. Personally, I've been using the iPhone 8 for quite a while, and the iPhone 8, I would say, is still one of Apple's best phones. I mean, it is one of the top best-selling phones for 2019 and 2018, even when it's released at 2017. Sadly, this phone has been replaced by the iPhone SE 2020 in Apple's shop, but you can find it refurbished for about $500 to $550 at eBay, and that's for the iPhone 8 Plus. For the iPhone 8, you can find it refurbished for about $380 to $420. But if you want to find those that are moderately used, you can find the iPhone 8 at $300 to as low as $150. I mean $250. And for the iPhone 8 Plus, you can find moderately used ones for about $400 to $450. To be honest, I would go for the iPhone 8 Plus. If you are planning on getting the iPhone 8, I will tell you, just go and get the iPhone SE, because it's a better buy and it doesn't cost much more. But if you want the dual camera setup and a larger screen with the home button, the iPhone 8 Plus is certainly the phone for you. It is a really great phone. I mean, it is like the iPhone X, the iPhone X or whatever you call it, but this phone is just really a great phone. Well, if you buy it with the box, I'm glad to tell you that at the iPhone 8, they still provide the dongle. Now let's look at the older iPhone 7s. The iPhone 7 is starting to feel a bit old. I mean, with the A10 Fusion chip, I can feel that this one lags quite a lot. I mean, it's not really much to complain, considering that this phone is already 4 years old, 4.5 actually. And this phone is just not worth buying. I mean, you can find the iPhone 7 Plus for about $250, but I'd rather you top up the $100 to get the iPhone 8 Plus. That's a much better phone than the iPhone 7 Plus. The iPhone 7, I'd rather get the iPhone 6s later, because it still costs about $150 to $200, and it's not much faster than the iPhone 6s and 6s Plus. So I would say, if you like the design of this phone, you can still get it. If you find a good deal, get it. But for the most part, I would say, if your budget is a bit lower, get the iPhone 6s Plus or the 6s. If you want a better phone, I mean a much better phone, get the iPhone 8 or 8 Plus, or the iPhone SE 2020. Now let's look at the iPhone 6s, and the 6s is like the iPhone 6, but a perfect iPhone 6. I mean, iPhone 6 has quite some issues, although it's the best selling phone Apple has ever created. Okay, the iPhone 6s is really one of the slower phones in this list, but it doesn't feel much slower than the iPhone 7. I would say the iPhone 6s and iPhone 7 are pretty close in terms of specifications, except for this phone is not water resistant, but it can handle quite a bit of liquid. I mean, I've done the test before, I didn't record it, but that time I wasn't even on YouTube. Anyway, the iPhone 6s can be found at just about $100, and the iPhone 6s Plus you can find for about $120 to $150. Obviously those are new, I mean used, okay, sorry, my bad, but for about that price, you can't really complain. It's a much better buy than the iPhone 7 in my opinion. But the Plus variants, you don't have the second camera, the telephoto camera, but if you really want that, you should go for the iPhone 8 Plus and not the 7 Plus, because the iPhone 8 Plus is generally a much better phone. Okay, so now let's look at the iPhone SE, and this is the cheapest phone to be supported by the latest software. This phone still have iOS 13, and you can find this as cheap as $80. And for that price, there's nothing you can complain. It runs smooth as the iPhone 6s. It's like an iPhone 6s, but just in a smaller shell. If you don't mind the 4-inch screen size, get it. It's only $80 for the base model, and for $80 you're already getting a good amount of value. I mean, this phone still runs iOS 13, the latest phone. The iPhone 11 Pro Max is still running that, and you're getting it for just $80. But bear in mind, the small screen also leads to a small battery. The battery is really horrible on the iPhone SE, especially when you get it used. I've been struggling to even get about 5 hours on a single charge, but I can't complain for $80. I mean, this phone is a really great phone. I mean, I wish I've appreciated it more, but now let's look at the iPhone 6. Okay, the iPhone 6 is no longer supported by the latest software. It runs Android, iOS 12. Why do I keep saying Android? I can only say it once. Okay, but anyway, this runs iOS 12, which is no longer the latest, and we will not get any more software updates. But iOS 12, it still supports the latest version of most apps like Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook. All these, it will still run perfectly fine on the iPhone 6. Of course, these phones are no longer being sold new, but you can find it used for about $60 for the iPhone 6, and the iPhone 6 Plus goes for about $80. So for that phone, for that price, there's really nothing much to complain. It is really cheap. Not as cheap as the iPhone 5s, which I'll be going through in a second, but the iPhone 6 Plus, you're getting a 5.5 inch screen. Like, that's a really big screen for $80. There's nothing to complain. Okay, the iPhone 6 is still a good phone, but it is dated. Okay, now let's look at the last phone I'll be featuring on this list, which is the iPhone 5s. This is the first phone with Touch ID, and you can find it for just under $50. This is the phone you should get if you are really tight on budget, like really tight on budget, you can't spend more than $50, get this phone. This phone don't run Android, I mean iOS 13 anymore, but I mean $50, there's nothing you can complain. You still get iOS 12, runs most app fine, and you get Touch ID still. This is the last phone I'll be featuring today because all the other phones run Android, I mean iOS 10 and below. iOS 10 is the cutoff point for most apps to get updates. So this phone will probably last another 1.5 years before it will be unsupported by most apps. So this phone, get it when you're on a tight budget. Battery life is gonna be rough and don't expect much for $50 or under that. Just remember this is a 2013 phone. Okay, so just before I end this video, let's do a quick summary. If you want Apple's greatest and latest, get this iPhone 11 Pro or iPhone 11 Pro Max. The difference is the screen size and battery. And if you don't want to spend $1,000, here are the best phones for Apple mid-rangers. And if you're on a tight budget, get one of these phones because these are really great value for money. And if you're already on a tight budget, try these phones. They're still great, although they are not supported by the latest iOS 13, but it will last another 1.5 years before it is totally phased out. But the iPhone XR and 6S are the best value for money. Check these specifications out and you will find out that these two phones are the best value for money. Okay, so thanks for watching this video. These are just based on my opinions on the phones. Everyone's opinion is different and feel free to leave your opinions down in the comments. Please remember to hit the like, subscribe and feel free to leave me a comment. Once again, thanks for watching and see y'all next time.